Hi, this is Alex. Thank you for clicking and welcome to this beginner lesson on adverbs of frequency. Now, adverbs of frequency are words that tell someone how often you do something, okay? So today we will look at some of the most common adverbs of frequency. These are very, very important words when you are discussing routines with other people and telling them how often you do something. Okay, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the most common adverbs of frequency. Okay, there are others. These are some of the most common. So if you'll see, I have always, usually, often, sometimes, and never. Okay, so if we read these sentences, the first sentence says, I always pay my rent. When you always do something, it happens every time. You do it all of the time. So if you look at this arrow pointing up, we have from 0% to 100% of the time you do something. So if you always do something, you do it 100% of the time. So, I always pay my rent. I always take a shower before bed. Okay? The next one, just below always, is the word usually. I usually get up at 7:30. So usually means like most of the time. Okay? Usually 90% of the time I do this. Okay? I always pay my rent. I usually get up at 7:30. Often, just below usually, I often read before bed. Okay? So again, often, probably more than 50%. More than 50% of the time you read before bed. Sometimes means some of the time. So sometimes, probably 30%, 40% of the time, I sometimes visit my mother. You should visit your mother often, probably, if you want to be a good son or a good daughter. And never means none of the time. None of the time. 0%. Okay? So I never go to expensive restaurants. Okay, so once again, these are some of the most common adverbs of frequency. And what these words do is tell someone how often you do something. Okay, so again, always 100% of the time. I always wake up at 6 o'clock to go to school. I always have lunch at 12 o'clock. Usually, most of the time, 90% of the time, I usually get up at 7:30. I usually see my friends on the weekend. I often read before bed, just a little bit under usually, so over 50%, maybe 60% of the time, I often read before bed. Sometimes, some of the time, below 50%, I sometimes visit my mother. I sometimes get an oil change for my car. You should get it every 5,000 kilometers, but anyway. And I never go to expensive restaurants 0% of the time. Okay, so again, never, never, none of the time, sometimes, some of the time, often, not most of the time, just below most of the time, a lot of the time, usually, most of the time, always, all of the time. If you'd like to do a quiz on these words and adverbs of frequency, you can check out engvid.com. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching and take care.